Imagine a city, a vibrant, sprawling metropolis, teeming with life, art, and innovation. Now imagine its ghost, a silent, forgotten twin, existing just feet beneath its bustling surface. This isn't folklore, it's a chilling reality, etched in concrete and steel, a labyrinthine underworld that holds the raw, unvarnished history of Berlin. Beneath the fashionable cafes and the gleaming glass facades, an entire civilization once took refuge, prepared for the unthinkable. This is the Berliner Unterwelten, Berlin's underworlds, a vast subterranean network not merely of tunnels, but of terror, resilience, and the desperate struggle for survival. What secrets lie buried beneath our feet? What untold stories whisper from the reinforced walls of forgotten bunkers? This is not just history, it's a visceral journey into the very heart of human endurance, a stark reminder that beneath every triumph, there often lies an abyss of unimaginable suffering. We are about to descend, to peel back the layers of earth, concrete, and memory, and confront the hidden dimensions of a city that refused to die. From the relentless bombardment of World War II to the chilling paranoia of the Cold War, these underground spaces were sanctuaries, prisons, and sometimes tombs. They represent the desperate measures of a nation under siege, the ingenuity of engineers, and the sheer tenacity of ordinary people caught in the crosshairs of history's most destructive conflicts. These are not merely dusty relics, they are living testaments, echoing with the screams, whispers, and heartbeats of generations. And what they reveal about the human spirit, about fear, and about hope will shock you to your core. Prepare to confront the hidden Berlin, the one rarely seen, the one that tells the truest story of survival against all odds. The origins of Berlin's underworld are not found in ancient myths or forgotten empires, but in the chillingly pragmatic calculations of war. As the clouds of World War II gathered over Europe, the German High Command, despite its aggressive ambitions, understood the grim inevitability of retaliatory air attacks. The initial response was rudimentary, reflecting the prevailing belief that the war would be short and decisive. Early air raid shelters were often little more than reinforced cellars, hastily dug trenches, or converted basements. However, as the Blitzkrieg failed to crush Britain and the Allied bombing campaigns began to escalate, the terrifying reality of total war dawned upon the German populace. The first bombs falling on Berlin in 1940, though largely symbolic, shattered any lingering illusions of invulnerability. It became clear that a comprehensive, robust system of civilian protection was not just desirable, but an absolute necessity for survival. The concept of Luftschutz, or air defense, transformed from a military doctrine into a pervasive societal imperative. Architects, engineers, and urban planners were tasked with an unprecedented challenge: to create an entire defensive infrastructure beneath a sprawling city, designed to withstand the unimaginable force of aerial bombardment. This was not a luxury, it was a matter of life and death, impacting every citizen. The construction boom that followed was monumental in scale and ambition. The initial phase saw the reinforcement of existing basements and the excavation of communal shelters in public squares and parks. These were often simple, earth-covered concrete structures designed for basic protection against blast and shrapnel. But as the Allied bombing campaigns intensified, reaching devastating levels by 1943, these basic measures proved woefully inadequate. The strategic shift demanded deeper, stronger, and more extensive bunkers capable of housing thousands. These structures, known as Mutter-Kind-Bunker, mother-child bunkers, Reichsbahn bunker, railway bunkers, and numerous public and private shelters, began to mushroom across the cityscape. The designs evolved rapidly, from single-story reinforced concrete boxes to multi-level complexes with intricate ventilation systems, emergency exits, and rudimentary medical facilities. The sheer speed of construction was astonishing, driven by fear and forced labor. Tens of thousands of German citizens, foreign laborers, and concentration camp prisoners were conscripted into this gargantuan effort, digging, mixing cement, and hauling steel, often under extreme pressure and hazardous conditions.
The very ground beneath Berlin became a canvas for survival, each layer of concrete pouring representing a desperate gamble against the relentless fury raining down from the skies. This was the birth of Berlin's underworld, forged in the crucible of war, a testament to both human ingenuity and the profound horrors that necessitated such desperate measures. It was a subterranean landscape born not of choice, but of absolute, terrifying necessity.
Life in the depths of Berlin's bunkers was a stark, disorienting existence, a world stripped bare of comfort and saturated with an omnipresent fear. When the wail of the air raid siren pierced the city's din, it triggered a Pavlovian response, a frantic scramble for the nearest shelter, often with children clutched tightly and a small, precious bag of essentials. Descending into the concrete maw, thousands would cram into spaces designed for far fewer, initiating a tense, claustrophobic ritual that could last for hours, sometimes even days. Inside, the world outside ceased to exist, replaced by the suffocating reality of reinforced concrete, recycled air, and the palpable tension of communal waiting. Families huddled together, strangers sharing benches and stories, all bound by the singular, terrifying vulnerability to the bombs raining down above. The soundscape of the bunker was its own unique symphony of terror. The constant whir of the ventilation system, a lifeline providing precious air. The muted thud of distant explosions, each one sending a tremor through the concrete floor, a reminder of the destructive power just meters away. And the occasional sharp cracks of anti-aircraft fire, a desperate, often futile attempt to repel the attackers. Children, resilient yet terrified, would try to maintain some semblance of normalcy, playing quiet games with improvised toys or attempting to sleep amidst the cramped conditions. Adults, their faces etched with exhaustion and anxiety, would knit, read, or simply stare into the dim light, their minds racing with thoughts of homes, loved ones, and the precariousness of their own existence. Sanitary conditions were often rudimentary at best, and disease was a constant threat. The air, thick with the smell of stale breath, damp concrete, and fear, was a potent reminder of their confinement. Yet even in this subterranean purgatory, glimmers of humanity persisted. Stories were shared, comforts offered, and a strange, desperate camaraderie often formed among those sharing the terrifying ordeal. The bunker became a microcosm of society, where social distinctions often blurred under the universal threat of annihilation. The Luftschutzwart, or air raid warden, played a crucial role, enforcing rules, managing resources, and attempting to maintain order amidst the chaos. They were the arbiters of life and death, directing people to safe zones, tending to the injured, and offering what little reassurance they could. For many, these bunkers were not just shelters, they were temporary homes, places where births occurred, where small joys were snatched from the jaws of despair, and where the fragile thread of everyday life desperately tried to hold. But ultimately, they were monuments to fear, stark, concrete reminders of a world turned upside down, where the most basic human need, safety, could only be found by burying oneself deep beneath the earth, away from the devastating light of day. While many of Berlin's underground shelters were designed for passive protection, a different breed of structure rose defiantly from the city's scarred landscape, the Floktürme, or anti-aircraft towers. These monumental concrete behemoths, often towering over 40 meters high, were Hitler's desperate response to the escalating Allied air superiority. 3 main complexes were built in Berlin, one in Homboltheim, one in Friedrichshain, and another in the Tiergarten. Each complex consisted of 2 towers, the G-term, or gun tower, bristling with heavy anti-aircraft artillery, and the L-term, or lead tower, which served as a command and control center, equipped with radar and range-finding equipment. Their construction was an engineering marvel and a logistical nightmare, requiring vast quantities of concrete, steel, and forced labor. The walls of these towers were several meters thick, making them virtually impregnable to even the heaviest Allied bombs. They were designed not just as defensive strongholds, but as multi-purpose bastions of total war.
The upper levels of the G-Terme housed the massive 12.8-centimeter Flak 40 guns, capable of firing high-explosive shells miles into the sky, creating a terrifying curtain of fire. Below these weapon platforms, the towers functioned as secure command centers for air defense operations, housing communication hubs, medical facilities, and essential supplies. But perhaps their most crucial role was as the largest and safest civilian air raid shelters in the city. Thousands upon thousands of Berliners would seek refuge within their lower levels during air raids, often living for days at a time in the vast cathedral-like spaces. These bunkers offered unparalleled protection from blast, fire, and shrapnel, a stark contrast to the often cramped and vulnerable smaller shelters. Eyewitness accounts describe the unique experience of sheltering in a Flakturm. The deafening roar of the anti-aircraft guns firing from the roof, shaking the entire structure. The smell of cordite and fear, and the grim satisfaction of seeing Allied bombers retreat, albeit temporarily. Beyond the Flakturme, Berlin also housed a network of specialized bunkers tailored for specific strategic functions. There were hospital bunkers designed to provide emergency medical care and surgical facilities deep underground, impervious to bombing. Communication bunkers ensured that vital lines of command and control remained operational even under the heaviest attack. Industrial bunkers protected critical machinery and production lines, allowing essential war industries to continue functioning. The Führer bunker itself, though primarily a command center, was the ultimate specialized bunker, a symbol of the regime's desperate attempt to insulate itself from the chaos it had unleashed. The existence of these specialized, highly reinforced structures underscores the totalizing nature of the war effort, where every aspect of urban life, from military command to civilian healthcare, was driven underground in a desperate bid for survival. These were not mere buildings, they were fortresses against apocalypse, testaments to the destructive power of modern warfare and the chilling lengths to which a regime would go to protect its core functions and its populace, even as it plunged the world into ruin. The end of World War II did not bring an immediate end to Berlin's reliance on its subterranean infrastructure. Instead, it ushered in a new era of adaptation and, chillingly, rebirth. In the immediate aftermath of the war, a city reduced to rubble, its housing stock decimated, found unexpected utility in its robust bunkers. Many served as temporary homes for displaced families, offering shelter from the elements, even if they lacked comfort. Others became makeshift warehouses for salvaged goods, workshops for nascent industries, or even illegal markets where desperate Berliners traded for survival. The Flakturme, too massive to easily demolish, stood as defiant monuments in the landscape, their upper levels often stripped of their guns, their lower levels sometimes offering refuge or storage space for the newly forming Allied and Soviet administrations. But this period of utilitarian repurposing was short-lived. As the Allied powers and the Soviet Union cemented their ideological divide, the fragile peace of post-war Europe fractured into the Cold War. Berlin, split into 4 occupation zones, became the neuralgic point of this global standoff, a front line in the ideological battle between East and West. And with the dawn of the nuclear age, the very concept of warfare was redefined. The threat was no longer conventional bombs, but atomic annihilation, bringing with it the horrifying prospect of widespread fallout and a protracted, poisoned aftermath. The existing network of WWII bunkers, once designed for protection against high explosives, now had to be reimagined for an entirely different kind of apocalypse. Both East and West Berlin began to assess their subterranean assets with a new, urgent lens. The robust concrete shells of the old air raid shelters, once considered overkill, now seemed providentially suited for a nuclear age. Engineers in both sectors embarked on ambitious programs to adapt and upgrade these structures. The focus shifted from blast protection alone to sealing against radioactive fallout, ensuring independent air supplies, and creating self-sufficient environments capable of sustaining life for weeks or months. New, hermetically sealed blast doors replaced the old ones. Complex air filtration systems, designed to filter out radioactive particles, were installed, often requiring the drilling of new shafts and the construction of elaborate intake vents. Water supplies were secured through deep wells or massive storage tanks. Decontamination showers and specialized medical facilities became standard additions. The psychological aspect was equally profound. The Cold War bunkers, unlike their WW2 predecessors, were not just places to wait out a raid. They were designed for a prolonged underground existence, a desperate gamble against the total collapse of civilization above. The division of Berlin itself was mirrored in its underground. While West Berlin, a democratic island within communist East Germany, openly planned and built public nuclear shelters, often integrating them into subway stations or new public buildings, East Berlin pursued a more secretive, state-controlled approach. Their bunkers were often hidden, their existence acknowledged only by those in power, reflecting the opaque nature of the regime. The legacy of WW2's desperate measures thus transformed into the Cold War's paranoid preparations, demonstrating how the subterranean world of Berlin continuously evolved to meet the existential threats of its time, each layer of concrete telling a story of fear, adaptation, and an enduring will to survive.
The Cold War cast a long, chilling shadow over Berlin, transforming the city's relationship with its underworld. The terrifying doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, meant that any large-scale conflict could escalate to nuclear annihilation, wiping out cities in an instant and poisoning the very air for generations. Civil defense, therefore, was no longer about ducking into a basement during a conventional bombing run. It was about preparing for a post-apocalyptic existence. Both East and West Berlin embarked on extensive, yet often distinct, programs to protect their populations. In West Berlin, an exposed outpost of democracy surrounded by communist territory, the threat felt particularly acute. Public information campaigns encouraged citizens to prepare Kultlager, cold storage, in their homes, stocking up on non-perishable food, water, and medical supplies. New public shelters were planned and constructed, often integrated into modern buildings or existing infrastructure like subway stations. A prime example is the massive bunker beneath the Steglitzer Kreisel, a skyscraper that became a symbol of West Berlin's resilience. Designed to house thousands, it was equipped with blast doors weighing tons, sophisticated air filtration systems to protect against radioactive fallout, deep wells for water, and enough provisions to sustain its occupants for weeks. These shelters were sterile, utilitarian spaces, painted in institutional greens and grays, designed for survival, not comfort. They contained decontamination showers, rudimentary medical facilities, and communication centers intended to maintain some semblance of order in a world turned upside down. Drills were conducted, often involving schoolchildren, to practice rapid evacuation and shelter procedures, imprinting a generation with the haunting reality of nuclear threat. On the other side of the wall, East Berlin's approach to civil defense was shrouded in secrecy, mirroring the opaque nature of its communist regime. While fewer public shelters were openly advertised, a vast, often hidden network of bunkers was built or adapted for party officials, government ministries, and essential personnel. These were often deeper, more robust, and more self-sufficient, reflecting a hierarchical approach to survival. Their existence was rarely discussed publicly, creating an atmosphere of quiet paranoia and unspoken fear. The East German civil defense doctrine emphasized total mobilization and state control, with designated shelters for various cadres, ensuring the survival of the communist system even if the population suffered. The technology within these Cold War bunkers was considerably more advanced than their WW2 predecessors. Geiger counters were standard equipment for monitoring radiation levels. Hermetically sealed environments maintained by positive air pressure were crucial for preventing fallout ingress. Communication equipment, often shortwave radios, was vital for establishing contact with a potentially devastated outside world. Yet, despite the technological advancements and the meticulous planning, a fundamental question lingered. Could anyone truly survive a nuclear war in these concrete cocoons? The psychological toll of prolonged confinement, the uncertainty of what awaited outside, and the inherent despair of such a scenario were almost as terrifying as the initial blast. These bunkers stand as stark reminders of a generation living under the shadow of atomic annihilation, a desperate attempt to engineer survival in the face of an existential threat, and a chilling testament to the paranoia that gripped a divided city in a divided world. Beyond the dedicated bunkers, Berlin possesses an even more extensive and dynamic subterranean network, its U-Bahn and S-Bahn railway systems. From their inception, these urban lifelines were conceived with a dual purpose: efficient public transport in peacetime and vital civilian shelters in times of war. This foresight proved invaluable during both World War II and the Cold War, demonstrating a remarkable adaptability and resilience embedded within the city's very infrastructure. During World War II, as Allied bombs devastated the cityscape, the U-Bahn and S-Bahn tunnels became involuntary yet crucial havens for hundreds of thousands of Berliners. When the sirens wailed, people would descend into the stations, finding refuge on the platforms and even within the dark tunnels themselves. The robust construction of these underground lines, particularly the deep-lying U-Bahn sections, offered significant protection against blast and shrapnel, a stark contrast to the vulnerable surface. Accounts from the period describe entire families setting up makeshift beds on platforms, turning station hallways into temporary communities. Medical personnel would establish first aid posts, and even rudimentary kitchens would be improvised to feed the sheltering masses. The trains themselves, when not operating, would often be used as additional shelter space, their carriages offering a measure of privacy and protection. Ventilation systems, though not initially designed for war-grade air filtration, were adapted to circulate air, preventing suffocation in overcrowded conditions. Emergency lighting and rudimentary sanitation were also installed. The challenge was immense: how to maintain a vital transportation system while simultaneously using it as a massive distributed shelter network. Post-war, during the Cold War, the dual-use concept was taken to an entirely new level, specifically with the threat of nuclear war in mind. Engineers meticulously planned how to seal off sections of the U-Bahn and S-Bahn system to protect against radioactive fallout and chemical weapons. Giant blast doors were installed at strategic tunnel entrances and exits, designed to seal segments of the network, transforming them into independent, self-contained shelters. These doors, often weighing many tons, were capable of withstanding significant overpressure from a nuclear blast. Emergency power generators, independent water supplies, and sophisticated air filtration systems were integrated into key stations, ensuring that designated sections could function as long-term fallout shelters. The deeper U-Bahn lines, such as parts of the U8 and U9, were considered particularly valuable for their inherent protection. Some sections even included specialized command posts and medical facilities, turning parts of the metro system into critical civil defense infrastructure. There were also legendary, often apocryphal, stories of secret tunnels connecting government buildings or strategic sites, adding another layer of intrigue to Berlin's subterranean world. While many of these proved to be urban myths, the sheer interconnectedness of the U-Bahn, S-Bahn, and utility tunnels did provide an extensive network that could, theoretically, be used for covert movement or secure communication. The adaptation of Berlin's public transport system for wartime and Cold War survival speaks volumes about the city's proactive approach to defense. It represents an intricate web of ingenuity and foresight, a silent testament to how everyday infrastructure can be transformed into a shield against unimaginable threats, revealing a hidden dimension to the daily commute, where every train journey once held the potential for a sudden descent into survival.
For decades after the war, much of Berlin's subterranean world remained forgotten, sealed off, or simply considered too dangerous or politically sensitive to explore. But in 1997, a group of passionate individuals, driven by a profound desire to preserve and share this crucial hidden history, founded the Berliner Unterwelten Association, Berliner Unterwelten e.V. Their mission was audacious: to research, document, and make accessible the vast and complex network of bunkers, tunnels, and air raid shelters that lay beneath the modern city. The challenges they faced were immense. Many sites were flooded, contaminated, structurally unstable, or choked with decades of debris. Access often required intricate negotiations with city authorities, railway companies, and private landowners. Yet, armed with shovels, flashlights, and an unshakable determination, the association's volunteers began the arduous task of reclamation. Their initial forays were into the most accessible WW2 air raid shelters, often beneath U-Bahn stations or public parks. What they uncovered was far more than just concrete structures. They found echoes of human experience: children's shoes, ration coupons, graffiti scratched into walls, even remnants of medical supplies. Each artifact, each faded inscription told a story of fear, resilience, and daily life under unimaginable pressure. The association's methodology is rigorous and respectful. They are not merely tour operators, they are historians, archaeologists, and educators. Their work involves painstaking archival research, cross-referencing blueprints and historical accounts, and conducting oral history interviews with survivors and eyewitnesses. This meticulous approach ensures that their tours are not just captivating, but also deeply authentic and historically accurate. The Berliner Unterwelten offers a diverse range of tours, each focusing on a different aspect of Berlin's subterranean history. Tour 1, Dark Worlds, takes visitors into a massive WW2 air raid shelter beneath the Gesundbrunnen U-Bahn station, revealing the daily life of those who sheltered there. Tour 2, From Flak Tower to Mountain of Rubble, explores the remnants of the Humboldtane Flak Tower, delving into its immense scale and complex purpose. Other tours might explore Cold War bunkers, escape tunnels under the Berlin Wall, or even a subterranean brewery. Each guide, a volunteer, is a walking encyclopedia, bringing the spaces to life with compelling narratives and a deep understanding of the historical context. They emphasize the civilian experience, the human cost of war, and the profound lessons these spaces impart. The association's impact extends far beyond tourism. They are instrumental in preserving these irreplaceable historical sites, often undertaking extensive restoration and stabilization projects themselves. Their educational outreach programs engage students and the wider public, ensuring that the memory of these dark chapters is never forgotten. The Berliner Unterwelten Association stands as a beacon of historical preservation and public education, reminding us that sometimes the most profound stories are found not in grand monuments, but in the forgotten depths beneath our feet, brought to light by the tireless dedication of those who refuse to let history be buried.
The world of Berliner Unterwelten is not static. It is a dynamic landscape of ongoing discoveries, passionate debates, and evolving interpretations. As the association continues its vital work, it inevitably confronts a range of controversies and challenges that underscore the complex nature of preserving such poignant history. One of the most persistent debates revolves around preservation versus demolition. Many WW2 bunkers, particularly the colossal Flakturme, were either partially destroyed or filled in after the war. However, countless smaller structures, forgotten beneath parks or private properties, remain. The question of whether to preserve every trace, even if it means halting urban development or diverting significant resources, is a constant tension. Some argue for the complete demolition of war relics, seeing them as symbols of a dark past best forgotten. Others, including the Berliner Unterwelten, advocate for careful preservation and interpretation, viewing these sites as crucial educational tools and tangible reminders of history's lessons. Accessibility is another key issue. While the association has opened many sites, countless others remain dangerous, inaccessible, or on private land. The desire to share these stories clashes with the practical realities of safety, structural integrity, and the sheer cost of renovation. Balancing the desire for public access with the need to protect fragile historical sites is a delicate dance. Moreover, the interpretation of these spaces invites continuous discussion. How does one present the history of a regime responsible for unspeakable atrocities without glorifying it, or conversely, sanitizing the grim realities? The Berliner Unterwelten navigates this with meticulous historical accuracy, focusing on the civilian experience, the horrors of war, and the resilience of the human spirit, while firmly contextualizing the actions of the Nazi regime. Recent discoveries continue to reshape our understanding of Berlin's underworld. Every year, new sections of tunnels, previously unknown bunkers, or forgotten utility conduits are unearthed during construction projects or deliberate archaeological investigations.
These findings often provide fresh insights into wartime engineering, the scale of forced labor, or the daily lives of those who used these spaces. Each new discovery adds another layer to the city's complex subterranean narrative, prompting revisions to maps and historical accounts. Beyond historical tours, these unique underground spaces are finding new life in unexpected ways. Their stark, atmospheric environments have become sought-after locations for film productions, art installations, and even avant-garde performances, offering a unique backdrop that resonates with history. Scientists and urban planners also utilize these spaces for research, studying everything from microclimates to ground stability. The Berliner Unterwelten Association constantly pushes the boundaries of research and public engagement, ensuring that this hidden world continues to yield its secrets and spark crucial conversations about memory, responsibility, and the enduring power of history in shaping our present and future. These controversies and discoveries are not impediments. They are vital parts of the ongoing dialogue, proving that Berlin's underworld remains a living, evolving historical narrative.
We began this journey by imagining a hidden city beneath Berlin, a ghost twin etched in concrete and steel. Now, as we emerge from the depths, the distinction between the city above and the underworld below feels profoundly blurred. The Berliner Unterwelten are not just historical curiosities, they are the scarred foundations upon which modern Berlin has been rebuilt, silent witnesses to its darkest hours and its most resilient triumphs. These bunkers and tunnels, born of desperate necessity during the unholy fire of World War II, then coldly adapted for the atomic paranoia of the Cold War, offer us more than just a glimpse into the past. They provide a visceral, uncomfortable, yet absolutely essential understanding of the human condition under extreme pressure. They remind us of the immense destructive power unleashed by unchecked ideologies and the terrifying cost paid by ordinary people caught in the maelstrom. Every blast door, every concrete wall, every faded inscription tells a story of fear, loss, and an enduring, defiant will to survive. But the legacy of Berlin's underworld extends beyond mere remembrance. It serves as a potent warning for the present and the future. In an increasingly unstable world where conflicts still rage and the specter of catastrophic warfare occasionally resurfaces, these subterranean spaces stand as poignant reminders of what happens when diplomacy fails and humanity resorts to its most destructive impulses. They challenge us to reflect on the nature of peace, the importance of historical memory, and the constant vigilance required to prevent such horrors from recurring. The tireless work of the Berliner Unterwelten Association ensures that these stories are not buried forever, that the echoes of the past continue to resonate, guiding our understanding of resilience, urban planning in times of crisis, and the profound human capacity for both destruction and endurance. As we walk the vibrant streets of Berlin today, let us not forget the silent city beneath our feet. For in its dark hidden chambers lies not just the story of a city, but a universal testament to the unwavering spirit of humanity forever striving for light even in the deepest shadows. The hidden Berlin whispers its lessons, urging us to listen, to learn, and to never forget the cost of survival. This underworld is not dead. It lives, breathes, and continues to teach.